For each scatter plot, decide which type of function you might choose as a model for the data. All right, let's start with this first one, A. It looks like we've got data that's going down and then up, and then down, and then up, and then down in a very repetitive, you might even say periodic way. What sort of a function fits this? I think you know. This looks very much like a trigonometric function. In fact, if we look at it, the peak of one of these periods starts at 0. It actually looks more like something involving cosine than sine. I don't want to get too in-depth because we weren't asked to try and come up with an actual equation for a function that might model this data, but it does look a little bit like cosine of x. Maybe +1 and then stretched vertically a little bit. Yeah, if you wanted to, you could probably find a graph that lines up with this pretty nicely. Might be a fun thing to do on your own. But let's continue. We just want to see what sorts of functions these are. If we look at scatter plot B, we can see that all of this data looks very close to a line. This does look like it would fit a linear model, specifically with a negative slope because it is decreasing. Looks very linear. You could take a line and line it up pretty well there. For plot C, if we look at this data, looks familiar. To me, it looks like something that is growing exponentially, so we would probably use an exponential function. I suppose it's possible that it's parabolic, and it's just a very wide parabola, but it just looks a little bit more exponential to me. Maybe it's just because I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of graphs, but this does look more exponential. If we look at plot D, this actually looks very parabolic, but we don't call those parabolic functions, we call those quadratic. A quadratic function opening downward, so there'd be a negative leading coefficient there. So in this class, we're really not going to be looking too much at scatter plots, but if you were to be studying statistics or you were to go out and do some sorts of surveys and get this sort of data, being able to see which sorts of functions line up with the data that you have will help you figure out what mathematical model is appropriate, and then you might be able to interpolate or extrapolate to get more information from there.